about the termination resolution that's going to come up for a vote this evening. It's obviously very narrow and deals specifically with the national emergency that this president declared. I'm curious if there's been any conversation in the caucus about broader legislation that would prevent future presidents from taking similar action on a host of other issues.
There has not been any discussion in the caucus. Right now, we're focused on dealing with this man-made, manufactured, manipulative, so-called national emergency that is really just designed to fulfill a campaign applause line connected to a medieval border wall that the president claimed Mexico would pay for it. This whole thing is outrageous and is inconsistent with the United States Constitution and the allocation of the power of spending to the Congress.
So you talked about the H.R. 8 and the companion bill is a good first step, but gun safety advocates have a more expansive agenda, and I wonder if you could talk about what is next. These bills are almost certainly going to pass the House, but advocates would like to see restrictions on large capacity magazines, et cetera. So what's next?
Yeah, I'm going to yield to my colleagues, but I think our focus right now is on H.R. 8 and H.R. 1112.
Well, the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force is still alive and well, and we will continue to hold our meetings. We'll continue to hear from the experts. We'll continue to hear from the researchers, and we'll continue to look for ways that we can make our communities safer from gun violence. We have a pretty aggressive schedule ahead of us where we're going to have people come in to meet with us. We're looking at holding a public hearing so we can hear from experts in the field to come in and talk to our task force and other members of Congress, and based on that, we'll decide where we go from there.
So you haven't identified anything specific?
Oh, we've got a ton of things identified, but we're going to do it in regular order, figure out what will work, what will reduce gun violence, what we can bring forward with a confidence that we will reduce gun violence in our communities.
And to, piggyback on what my colleague has just said is that, having been an advocate and doing a lot of work on gun violence prevention advocacy, we know that, background checks for all gun sales is just one way to deter the expensive culture that we're living in, but also extreme risk protection orders, which people call red flag laws. Child access prevention is going to be extremely critical because the number one way that children are killing themselves is access to a gun. Also, to concealed carry reciprocity. We know that the NRA gun lobby, this is their number one agenda to make sure that the weakest law of the land becomes the law of the land all over. Anyone, whether or not they have access, whether or not they have a permit to carry, or whether or not they have a background check for carrying that gun, or whether or not they actually have training. The NRA gun lobby's goal is to make sure that anyone can carry from state to state, whether or not the state that they're going to has stricter gun laws. So there are a number of ways that my colleagues and I will be working, as Mike has said, is that, we're going to critically take our time and look at everything, making sure that we're not infringing upon people's ability to own guns. We're not about infringing upon people's Second Amendment rights to protect their families and their children and their territories. But we have to make sure that we are critically looking at the laws, making sure that they are common sense, and also looking for bipartisan support.
Thank you.
Looking ahead to tomorrow a little bit, there's the Cohen hearing at Oversight. I'm wondering what you think is the most important thing for Democrats to establish or to have him establish in that hearing.
Well, the American people deserve to know whether Donald Trump has been functioning as the president of the United States of America or as the equivalent of an organized crime boss. Michael Cohen can shed some light on that very important question. I'm sorry, yes.
Can I follow up on that? Michael Cohen has also been convicted of lying to Congress in the past. What gives you any sort of confidence that he'll come before your committee tomorrow and say anything that's truthful?
Well, Justice Brandeis has made the point that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Clearly, there's no one closer to Donald Trump with respect to his business practices, not month after month, not year after year, but decade after decade, than Donald Trump and his relationship with Michael Cohen. And so what we need to hear from Michael Cohen is that information presented in a transparent fashion, and the American people can make a decision from there.
What is Democrats' plan B for if and when the measure to end the president's national emergency fails or is vetoed by the president? Is the plan B kind of to have individual committees take legal action, or what does that look like?
We're focused on plan A right now, which is to make sure that we have a strongly bipartisan vote with respect to the resolution of disapproval. And we are urging our colleagues to not just talk the talk with respect to the House as a separate and co-equal branch of government, but walking the walk. The president, in this particular instance, is behaving more like a king. That is inconsistent with what James Madison and the Founding Fathers expected out of the executive branch. The Founding Fathers were clear that when the executive branch overreaches, it's the job of the United States Congress as a separate and co-equal branch of government to serve as a check and balance. The resolution of disapproval with respect to Donald Trump's fake national emergency is consistent with that constitutional responsibility. That is what we're focused on right now. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, can we go back? Currently I need that.